I'm so glad you're running, and anything I can do to help, hope you will let me know. I wish we're up there with you, but I'm down here in DC. You know, I was a little bit late getting on because we just had a vote, but you know, I so admire your background, your skills, your expertise, and your commitment to education, environment, healthcare. You're going to be just an extraordinary state representative, and we have
thank you.
in common those interests, but we have something else in common too. I think one of your daughters, if I'm not...
Emily, my daughter, yes.
And you have a granddaughter named Claire.
Oh, wow.
It happens to be my daughter's
I love that.
Claire. They spell it the same.
Oh, my goodness.
And yesterday was her 27th birthday. So.
Oh, that's lovely. Oh. Well, Irving wanted to introduce you, give you a proper welcome. Irving is my son, my pride and joy. Yes.
Great.
Well, thank you, Senator Blumenthal. We're so honored and lucky to have you here. Just so everyone knows, you are our senator. You replace Senator Dodd here in Connecticut. You have been a leader in speaking up about the importance of healthcare, especially affordable healthcare. This last week, you gave incredible speeches on pre-existing conditions, essential health benefits. You started way back when, in 1987, as a state representative in Connecticut, kind of your start into service, then state senate. And we're just so honored and lucky to have you representing us in DC. So with no further ado, I'll let you guys take it away.
Thank you. Senator Blumenthal, the last time I saw you was at the Cate, and you were recovering from a torn rotator cuff. I just want to ask, are you okay? Are you back?
I'm okay. Yeah, as you can see. I couldn't have done this.
Oh,
and I think my arm was in a sling.
It was in a sling, yeah.
Rotator cuff surgery.
Oh, good, good. And that's a painful surgery, is what I understand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm so honored to have you and to meet with you. And I don't know where you want to start. I just have so many questions for you. I'm wondering maybe first about the Affordable Care Act and what you're expecting. I just heard Chris Murphy's impassioned speech and his concern about what's going to happen with our Supreme Court Justice nomination. Maybe if you could speak to that, what your thoughts are in that regard.
Sure. I am deeply concerned about this nominee because she has written twice, actually, to say she thought that the Supreme Court was mistaken in upholding the Affordable Care Act. There have been 2 Supreme Court cases already, and FIB versus Sebelius and King versus Burwell. She's criticized them both and said, in effect, about one, she thought the dissent got the better of the argument, and in the other, that Justice Roberts stretched the meaning of the act to uphold it. And so I'm deeply concerned that they will strike down the Affordable Care Act if she's on the bench, and that would leave half of Connecticut without access to health care because half of Connecticut suffers from pre-existing conditions, 52% of our people, 1.5 million. And I'm also deeply concerned about all of the other provisions of the Affordable Care Act that allow children to stay on their parents' policies up to the age of 26, lower prescription drug costs, the network provisions that allow access to health care. So we attempted to bring into the hearing room last week real people who would suffer from that harm, like Connor Kern, who lives in Ridgefield, Connecticut, has a form of muscular dystrophy that requires very expensive treatment just to keep him alive. And his parents have kept him alive. He's 10 years old. I saw him, as a matter of fact, by coincidence in Ridgefield on his 10th birthday. And he needs the Affordable Care Act. And his poster, his voice, his face were with us in that hearing room. And there are so many others all around Connecticut who would suffer as well. So your question about the Affordable Care Act is very, very well taken. Of course, reproductive freedoms would be likely curtailed if not eviscerated, because she has indicated her hostility to Roe v. Wade. She called its legacy barbaric. She has aligned herself with a group that would criminally prohibit IVF, in vitro fertilization. And she has also indicated again in her writings that she would be willing to overturn well-established precedent. And finally, very relevant to Connecticut, and it's also a healthcare issue, gun violence prevention, where she has taken a really radical, extreme position on the scope of the Second Amendment. She has said, for example, in a dissent, that she believes that felons should have access to weapons. They should be permitted to own and possess them under the Second Amendment. And that approach, and she said herself in a speech that it sounds a bit radical, it is radical, might mean striking down Connecticut's gun violence protection statute. I know you've been deeply involved in education and environment. I think she would curtail protections in Connecticut's law on those fronts. She has shown a willingness to sustain laws that may be discriminatory, voting rights the same. So I think that we are in a very dangerous place, on the verge of approving a justice who would curtail fundamental rights. And I will just finish by saying, today we, in effect, stayed away from the committee meeting where her nomination was approved by the Judiciary Committee, because we wanted to send a message. We don't want to lend another ounce of legitimacy to this nomination. No more business as usual. We're going to speak on the floor. We're going to vote no on her. I'm hoping that the American people will react in the same way we do. They're just exercising raw power. They're breaking the norms. They're breaking their word and the rules. And they're doing it because they can. But the American people can do some things about it too. And I still have the hope, even though our tools and time are limited, that the American people will speak out in a way that may cause some Republicans to change their positions. I'm not optimistic. Right now they have the votes, but my Republican colleagues need to be held accountable. And I think all these issues are so important in Connecticut and in your race, because I know your opponent has taken a different view on the Affordable Care Act and pre-existing conditions.
Right.
And I think your position is so important on that issue.
Well, it's so important. And as we age, we all have pre-existing conditions, is what I say to people. You know, we don't evolve without having something that happens to us that's pretty important. So how can we support you, Senator Blumenthal? What can we do? You know, what are some action steps that we can take? Any suggestions on that? How can we support you?
Well, you know, I think the most important thing is to vote and take 5 friends with you to the polls, or make sure 5 friends vote. But also in other states where my Republican colleagues are up for re-election, and I'll tell you where they are. Arizona, Martha McSally is right now losing to Mark Kelly. Mark is an excellent candidate. The more people, if you know any in Arizona, you can contact, the better. In Colorado, John Hickenlooper against the incumbent, Cory Gardner. Both he and McSally are voting for Amy Coney Barrett. In Maine, although Susan Collins may vote against simply because she says she doesn't want to do it before the election, she has really gone both ways. For example, she voted for Kavanaugh. In North Carolina, Tom Tillis could be defeated by Cal Cunningham. In Montana, Steve Daines by Steve Bullock. And there are other states where we have pretty close races, Georgia, South Carolina, Texas. If you know people in those states, make sure they're voting for the Democrat.
Okay.
But here's what's really important. I want to help you because your race, for me, living here in Connecticut, is so important on this issue of healthcare because, as they say, all politics is local.
Right.
The strength of our healthcare exchange, of our healthcare insurance system really depends on people like you. Likewise, our education, and of course, our environmental values, because you've been a supporter of the governor's transportation
Absolutely.
plan. So I think that we're all in it together.
Absolutely.
The more people can be working for you, the more important for all of us.
Well, thank you. I do have a really strong team, and I'm eternally grateful for all the work that people have done on my behalf. And we are trying to run a very positive campaign, but and the interesting thing for me is how little people know at the grassroots level about some of the issues that are going on, and they just say, I don't get involved with politics. And like you said, all politics is local. So we need to be cognizant of that and careful with that. So that's huge. And
Oh, you have a great team, including Irving, right?
yes, he's phenomenal. I'm very lucky. Yeah, he was on his way to China and was ready to take a job there when COVID broke out. I don't know if you heard that story. He's fluent in Mandarin and was ready to start a new position. And he said, Mom, everybody's in masks and they're all buttoned up, locked down. I said, come home. And, you know, it turned out it's been phenomenal for me. But yeah, so hopefully he can move on and do some great things. So is there anything it's kind of doom and gloom right now as far as some of the things going on at the federal level. Are there any silver linings, things that you're seeing or things that we can talk about that you're feeling somewhat optimistic about?
You know, it is a time of great despair, and as you say, doom and gloom. Tremendous hardship and heartbreak all across the state. You know, as I travel the state, I come home every weekend, literally every weekend. Traveling the state. I can tell you, I take hope from the resilience that I've seen, even in the midst of despair and death. You know, we've all lost someone, or we know someone who has been lost. A friend of mine whom I've known for many years, whose kids grew up playing with mine, passed away from COVID.
From COVID?
And, yeah. I mean,
and even if I've lost a friend, a very close friend, not to COVID, as far as we understand, but because she passed during COVID, we didn't have that normal opportunity of being with her husband. And so that's so hard, such a hardship.
That is one of the most pernicious effects of this disease. It robs people of that human contact in their last hours, and often they will pass away in isolation from their families, even their spouses or parents, children. So I think we need to come together. I've seen that happening. I think that's a bright spot. I think a President Biden would help to bring us together and unite us in common purpose, just as we did after 9/11. I am very hopeful that not only will we come together, but we will truly turn the corner on this pandemic. President Trump says we are turning it now, but there's no evidence of that. In fact, the infection.
I think we're hitting our second wave is what I'm anticipating.
I think you're right, Kate.
Right. What about mental health, Senator Blumenthal? If we could shift to that a little bit. I know just the mental health component and the impact of COVID on so many people. And I'm seeing people have just become almost relentless and like no way to kind of be nice. So what do you think about cyberbullying and what goes on and how people are treating each other these days?
I am sure that you and others on this call have seen the increase in mental health issues that people are having in the midst of this pandemic. They are isolated at home. often fearful, anxious, stressed. So we've seen a rise in substance use disorder,
Mm-hmm.
addiction. We've seen a rise in domestic violence.
Mm.
The calls at the Connecticut Coalition Against Domestic Violence are up 130%. We've seen an increase in the need for mental health services. And, you know, I have fought for a long time for mental health parity in our insurance.
Mm-hmm.
We succeeded in passing laws at the state and the federal level, but unfortunately, the insurance companies don't always obey them, don't
That's too
always
bad.
provide for that kind of mental health service. So I think we need it in the schools as well.
Absolutely.
And
Well, and
as
the
you,
ironic thing is that we have our kids go into lockdown drills. And yesterday I had a debate with my opponent and talking about when I was working as a speech pathologist in the school system, and somebody showed up. It was a street shooter, and we were literally hiding on their desks. And the trauma that goes back to that reminds me of when I was a kid back in the 50s and 60s, and we would hide because we thought that there would be. I grew up outside of Omaha, so we had strategic air command, so we really thought that we would be very vulnerable. But I'm enlightened or encouraged by telehealth. Can you talk about that for a little bit?
absolutely, telehealth is one of the most promising advances in healthcare. And I first saw it in the VA system because the VA serves a lot of veterans who are in rural areas in other parts of the country,
Mm-hmm.
also in Connecticut. And the VA started using telehealth because not every veteran, especially as they age, could get to the VA facility in West Haven or Newington. So they established C blocks where telehealth could be used to transmit the case histories and all the relevant information. And I think telehealth, and including mental telehealth,
Exactly.
is
Well,
tremendously important.
that's why I bring it up. One of my friends who lives just down the street is a licensed clinical social worker, and she said when she gets into Zoom calls like this, she'll put her speaker or her person that she's working with, her client, on a speaker mode, and she said she can see all the nuances in their face, and just it's really effective. And I
Yeah,
think it was, you know, it's a paradigm shift, so it's a
right.
big change.
And I think as people get used to this mode of communication, as they find it less strange, they'll be more natural. Um, I wish I could say that education is doing okay using these kinds of remote services. Number one, not all children are connected. There's a homework gap,
Mm-hmm.
digital divide that is really tragic for a lot of children, including here in Connecticut. It's not just limited to states with large rural populations. It's
Right. We
everywhere.
did a good job, at least in our town, of deploying a lot of devices so that our students do have it, but then the internet with band isn't strong
Yeah,
enough to be able to allow everybody to be Zooming or distance learning all at the same time. And I've always been a strong proponent of parent education and early childhood education. What do you think about putting legislation towards that, helping parents to be, you know, really their first teacher, their kid's teacher? I think just more involved all the way through the whole educational process.
right.
I mean, clearly I was. That's how I taught my, you know, like if they were reading The Great Gatsby, I read The Great Gatsby, and even though I'd read it 20 years ago, kind of thing. Just so we had those conversations.
I think that's a really, really important point. And it relates to, first of all, parents need to be able to teach their kids how to use the devices, how to be connected. Um, Often it's the other way around,
Mm-hmm.
teaching their parents. But I think it's really important to provide the resources, the devices. I'm glad your town has provided them, but not every town has. And I think we really need to invest in broadband as we do in our schools,
I agree.
in teachers, social and emotional learning,
Absolutely.
uh, the counseling aspects that are necessary for mental health. And in part, that's one of the reasons why I'm working hard for another pandemic relief bill,
Mm.
even though Speaker Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Mnuchin remain apart. They haven't reached an agreement yet. I think it's very, very important for our small businesses, for unemployment insurance, for aid for state and local governments, another stimulus payment, but including election security and broadband connection and education, that we invest the money that is in the House bill, and I'm hopeful that we'll have a robust response to this pandemic.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I'm really excited that some of those things. How about if we shift to energy for a little bit? Like, I'm a really strong proponent for doing everything to save the environment, but I'm excited to think about electrical energy, maybe, electric cars, and I like to bicycle and bike lanes, and just really, going greener and thinking more and more. Any initiatives or thoughts on that?
I think that's an excellent point. Solar is going to be very, very important, particularly as we develop the batteries that can store it, the energy that's gathered from the sun.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there are all kinds of ways that our power system can be more cost effective as well as cheaper. Eversource raised its rates, even though they were making hundreds of millions of dollars more than they were projected to do. And I think there are not only more cost-effective ways of providing energy, but also more environmentally friendly ways. And I'm hoping that we will, as part of this infrastructure advance, perhaps with the new administration, focus on those forms of energy that really offer such great promise and potential.
That's great. And what about, I know that our markets have been depleted as far as using our recyclables. I'm a strong proponent of redoing the bottle bill, the container bill. And I know that I've been to the transfer station and have spoken to some of the workers there, and they said the markets have dropped out of that. Do you think there's a possibility of having that be an environmental initiative, and having people make and regenerate these things, reuse them?
I think so. Not only recycle the containers that we use now for drinks that are bottled or cans, but also all kinds of other kinds of containers, whether it's fast food or whatever. And I think that's a very promising area. And your leadership there in the state legislature could be really, really important because, sometimes there are forces arrayed against the environmental values, and your advocacy could be really important. And I know that you have been a longtime champion, not only of electric cars, of train transportation, but also coastal resilience, which is tremendously important. We've lost a lot of homes along the coast. We could have planned better. Rebuilding them to be more resilient is very important.
Well, just the fires in California, and now, is it Utah or Colorado where there's fires going on now too?
Colorado has horrendous fires. So, but Connecticut also is going to suffer because of the rising tides and waters along our coast.
Right.
We're going to suffer because of the change in habitat and wildlife. We're going to suffer because of the superstorms that we've seen become the new normal. And we need to be not only resilient, but also advocate for fewer carbon emissions and other ways that we can prevent global warming.
Right. It's just so hard. My husband and I, and my family, we've lived all over the country, from Nebraska to Utah to Massachusetts up to Vermont. So, we've lived all over, and whatever we thought was not possible, we learned that immediately it is. But yeah. I guess we're in the land of steady habits here. So that's a little bit, what that's like. So somebody has a question. How important is the state legislatures are dominated by Democrats? Can you comment on the Democratic kind of stronghold that we have going on right now?
Very important. Let me just give you a few examples. Environmental protection depends on Democrats being there. One of my colleagues is just peeking in.
Oh, good. They could do a Zoom bomb.
Environmental protection, healthcare, the healthcare exchanges and how well they function, education, the investment in our schools, transportation and infrastructure. You know, Connecticut actually runs a major part of our railroad. It's responsible for the tracks. That's very unusual through Fairfield County. And the investment in the Hartford to New Haven line. There are just so many ways, and very much on my mind these days is election security prevention.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, in those states that have Republican legislatures, they're doing all kinds of things to mess with mail-in ballots, absentee ballots, not counting them after election day, not counting them at all if they don't arrive before the election day. All kinds of ruses that they're trying to do because they can. They have Republican control, and they're trying to manipulate the system to undercount mail-in and absentee ballots or discourage people from voting. So it is very important to have a Democratic legislature and also obviously a Democratic governor.
Well, thank you so much. We have a bunch of people who jumped on, so maybe open it up, Irving, and let everybody, and we could do a picture with Senator Blumenthal, if that'd be okay with you, Senator?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. There's Dave, there's Irving.
Hi, Kate.
Yeah, hello, everyone. My friend Joanne, yeah.
Senator, good evening.
Thank you everyone for joining.
Yes. Yeah, we have quite a DTC in town and quite a number of lovely, wonderful people. So next time you make it to Old Saybrook, come a little bit further east and visit us in East Lyme and Salem, and we would love to.
Well, you know, I haven't come in the last couple of years, but I used to go to the DTC event in Salem, in the park. I don't know whether you still do it there. But
Janet Griggs is on, and maybe Janet, you could speak to that. I don't really know.
And I've certainly been.
Used to come to the yacht club in East Lyme. I
Yeah,
remember you had a couple
Yeah,
of
that's
events
right.
there.
That's right. Yeah.
That's a great spot. Yeah, and you have some of the best food of any Democratic town committee.
We do like to eat and laugh and be together. So, well, it's just been such a thrill. Maybe somebody lucky person maybe ask a quick question of Senator Blumenthal if you have another minute.
Sure. Anybody have any questions?
Yes. How come I don't see you at road races anymore?
Well,
I mean, before the pandemic.
The pandemic
I used to line up with you
responsible.
at a lot of races, and I don't see you at races anymore.
Well, I don't know whether you were on, but Kate mentioned that she saw me after I had rotator cuff surgery.
Oh, well, that's
I had
sure.
surgery on my rotator cuff.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I couldn't run for a while. It seems counterintuitive, but I couldn't run. And I also had some problems with my back. So my doctor said, we know how competitive you are. You can run, but not in races because you're gonna overdo it. We know you.
Yeah.
So
Doesn't that hurt when your doctor knows you better than you want them to? Like, oh my goodness.
well, he knows me because my wife knows me, and she kind of advised him that he should tell me that the only way I'm going to be able to continue all the physical stuff I do is if I don't overdo it. So thanks for the question, though.
Well, thank you for that good answer. I'm sorry to hear about those medical issues.
I love the picture of John F. Kennedy behind you.
Oh, yeah, that's That was from a poster that I got years and years ago from the American Library Association. I don't know, you probably can't see it, but on the bottom there's a quote that he gave at an address at Amherst University about a month before the assassination. It's a wonderful, wonderful quote about the role of poetry and the arts in,
Oh, I love that.
in culture.
Yeah.
You'll have to
It's
share
a great
that, Dave.
portrait. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
poster from the American Library Association.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Wow.
And
that's
Senator,
another
our
thing
candidate for the 20th district in Connecticut, Martha Marks, also just joined the call.
Oh, great.
Yeah, Martha's running a hard campaign.
I know.
Senator Blumenthal,
Hi, Martha.
how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I had my last call was one of those people that keeps you on for 15 minutes, all about healthcare. She can't afford her healthcare, but I was like, I got to get off. So
Well,
I
much more
apologize.
important to talk to that person than to talk to me.
I know.
But it's just so good to see somebody who's on the front line. What do you think our chances are? Are we going to have a new president in a few weeks?
You know,
Better.
I feel good about it, but I
Good.
think it's going to be close. I don't believe the polls that show wide margins. I really think it's going to be, I'd love for it to be a landslide.
Of
And,
course.
you know, in my fondest dreams, I think, well, it's possible we could really have a blowout, but I feel good about Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan.
Mm.
Could take Florida. But if we could take those three battleground states and Florida or Arizona and Nevada, I think we've got a solid core. We even have a chance in Iowa to win because Trump is so unpopular with a lot of farmers. And if you take states around the country, Trump has lost support. The question is actually who comes to vote? And that's why, as I mentioned earlier, when people ask me, what can we do? You can vote, get 5 people at polls or 25, and also help get Democrats out in the battleground states, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio. If we win those states, we take it. And we have to be prepared, I think, I'll just add this point, we have to be prepared that the winner may not be formally known on election eve, because they'll be putting ballots in Pennsylvania, for example, for a day or so afterward, in other states as well. And our voters may be voting in higher numbers by mail-in or absentee or other votes that have to be counted into the morning of election day, post-election day, and maybe even a day or so afterward.
Well, and we have a lot of people who are abroad, right? I've heard that that's another problem, and getting those votes in and counted. And we have a couple people who are veterans who are here with us today. And I know you're a veteran as well. So thank you for your service. Any words of...
Who are the veterans on the call? Thank you for your service. Who are the veterans?
Wendy and Nikki.
Great.
And Dave. That's right, Dave. You were in the Navy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, 25 years.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you all for your service. I know there are a lot of veterans in southeastern Connecticut and eastern Connecticut as a whole, probably more than any other area of the state. How's your race going, Martha?
It's good. I'm feeling cautiously optimistic. I mean, I've made over, I don't know, like 23,000 calls now. It's all I've been doing last 4 or 5 months. And I mean, I'm feeling good. It's just my digital campaign is great. My mail piece is great. You know, in New London, we really did a tough one, you know, with a picture of Joe and Kamala, and then Courtney, me, Dela Cruz, and Nolan. And it said, vote against hate, vote against racism, vote against, you know, homophobia. You know, good old New London doesn't, we don't hold back.
Yeah.
Text me, and they love it. I mean, so I have one more mail piece really tying him in with Trump, and I think I did pretty well on my debate.
Great.
You did. You did.
That,
You
Yeah.
did fine.
yeah, my opponent's tired. I don't know. I sometimes worry that he's sick. I actually worry about the guy, but
You have a good heart.
I'm feeling, I don't know. I can't work any harder than I am, Senator. So, you know, it's been an amazing experience. It's just the people I meet, and it's been fantastic. I've learned so much. So
That's
hopefully
great.
we'll be victorious. And Kate, I mean, I'm running with great candidates too. It's just the whole campaign has been nothing but positive. Really, really good.
Good. Well, as Kate says, you have a great heart, and you're also a nurse, so you ought to know if your opponent isn't looking well, you could probably diagnose it. But,
Yeah. I don't know if I
you
want to
and Kate.
diagnose him or take care of him. But I can have a little empathy for him. That's
I
about
think
as far as
I
I'm
think
gonna
you're the
go.
cause of it, Martha.
Yeah. I'm sorry, he doesn't
No,
look good.
both,
You're giving him
No,
oxygen.
no,
Kate and you.
his
are
affect
so
was
hard.
flat, and he was very tentative through the whole debate. I mean,
Yeah.
he did look like he was not himself, if you will. And maybe he's ambivalent about the fight. And he certainly is ambivalent.
Yeah, he was nervous. I mean, he
Also,
definitely does. He doesn't
And
like
Senator,
me.
we actually have the chair of the East Lyme DTC on the call too, Jason Diebel. Just want to recognize him. He's been an incredible leader and organizer throughout the campaign. Jason, if you want to say any words or ask any questions.
Okay, I wasn't done, but I guess I'm done, huh, Irving?
No.
I yield my time.
That's your way of telling me to shut up, right? Okay.
No, finish.
No,
You
no,
finish,
no.
Martha, and then we'll go.
No, that's okay. That's all right. I'm done.
Senator, may I ask a serious question? Yeah, from
Sure.
a pragmatic standpoint, is there any way of stopping the Supreme Court nomination now that the vote goes to the full Senate?
I'll be really blunt. They have the votes. They have a majority. My hope was, and I still have that hope, that maybe we can persuade two of my colleagues, all it takes is two, to break with them. And that's why I've been urging people to call friends, relatives, whatever, in the states. The ones that I mentioned, Arizona, Colorado, Montana, North Carolina, Maine, where there are close races. And where maybe if there is enough outcry that we could make them respond to the majority of Americans, which want the next president and the next justice, the next Senate to choose the next justice. But you know, they had the votes to get this nominee out of committee. They're rushing it. It's a sham process. They're doing it because they can, and it's a raw political power grab, and it's going to shift the court radically to the right for generations, literally for decades. And I'm still hopeful. We're determined to fight, and we will fight. We're going to use a few procedural tools that we have.
Yeah.
We have limited tools, but we're going to use every one that we have in the short time that we have remaining. And so to answer your question, as of tonight, as we sit here, they have the votes. But I am still determined that we're going to fight and use every tool that we have available.
Thank you.
And I wrote down the list of states, and I can share that with our Salem and East Lyme DTC so that I know my brother lives in Texas, and he'll be on the horn as soon as I give him the word to
Good.
try to make a difference with that. Joanne, you had a PT question. Did you want to go ahead and ask? No?
Well, I only thought that since Senator Blumenthal had had some physical therapy, I assume, after rotator cuff and low back, I thought you might be a little sympathetic to our situation of having such a low Medicare cap. People who are
I'm
on
very
Medicare are
sympathetic.
limited to the amount of physical therapy that they can get. And I just, and I'm sorry, Kate, because this is your party.
Hey,
But
you work tenaciously on behalf of us, so no, absolutely. Go ahead and ask your question.
my question is, how can we get rid of the Medicare cap for physical therapy?
I am totally in favor of it. In fact, I've come to appreciate medical therapy, physical therapy. I don't know whether you were on the call, but I was asked why I haven't been doing any races lately. And part of the answer is the rotator cuff surgery that I had. Another is that I've had a few back issues. I still run, but I don't race. And physical therapy has become a very, very important part of my life. I'm not doing it right now, but I've come to really appreciate how important physical therapy is. And it's, by the way, it's very cost effective because surgery can be avoided.
Yes. And I don't mean to take your time away from this important. I just wanted to put that bug in your bonnet, and next time it comes up, you just click the yes button.
Okay.
Sounds like he knows. Yeah, sounds like.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joanne.
We should probably point out that we do have Beth Hogan, who has been our
Beth.
fearless
How are you,
leader.
Beth?
And Beth just got an award. Maybe Beth, you want to unmute yourself and just speak for a minute?
How you doing, Senator?
Hi, Beth.
I'm great. Nice to see you, and I appreciate all the work you're doing and putting up the good fight down there, and just everything you do. And it's nice seeing you again too, as well.
Well, congratulations on the award.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're so
I did
proud
a
of her.
video, I think, for that event.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, great. I
Great.
wish I could have been there, but I think it was virtual. Right?
Yeah, the whole thing was virtual. We went up the day before, though,
Yeah.
the awardees, and got together ourselves and talked. So it was nice.
You know, it has been so frustrating for me because, as many of you know, like Beth and David and Kate, you know, and Martha, I'm so accustomed to being around the state at events. I love getting around the state. I love Steve. I know Steve Larson knows as well. Many of you I see very long-standing friends on this call who I've known for many, many years. And part of the joy of my job now and when I was Attorney General was visiting with you. And the pandemic, I mean, it's a minor, very, very minor sacrifice, but I think it is emblematic of the isolating effect of this pandemic. That so many of these events, you know, the parades, the fairs that we'll go back to having them, I'm sure, at some point, but none of them happened this year, and it's kind of been a gap, I think, in everybody's life. You know, the East Lyme DTC and Salem DCC and New London events. I haven't been to New London. One of my visits, I was at there's an ice cream shop down near the water, and we've tried to help her. She's a small business person who runs that shop, but I've reached out in that way to so many of the small businesses, so many of the people who need unemployment insurance, but we have to do it remote or on the phone, and you know, it's really heartbreaking what our state has endured and what the country is going through. So thanks to all of you for your resilience. But we'll get through it because we're America, right?
I remember when you were a state senator and used to get around.
Yeah, that's true.
1990, when I first met you.
Senator. As state senator, not even U.S. senator.
Yeah, it was a long time, 30 years.
Right. Well, you know, Tony, I've seen you at a lot of things all around the state.
I was in Ledyard back then.
Yeah, I remember well.
I bet you do.
You know, I'll tell you a story. I don't know whether you remember this. I came to Ledyard, I think it was Ledyard. I was running for state attorney general. And people were saying to me, I was a state senator at the time, and I had a pretty contentious contest with Jay Levin, who has become a very, very close friend now over the years. But people were saying to me, you know, you seem like a nice guy. You've got a great background. You're well educated, but you're a little too stiff. Why don't you just offer to take people out for a beer? So I figured next ETC meeting, I think it was Ledyard, and I think it might have been in a school or a town hall. So on my way there, I bought a 6-pack of beer. By the way, I'm not a drinker. So I bought the beer and I had it in a brown paper bag. And I came into the meeting and the town chair said to me, "What's in the bag?" And I said, "It's a 6-pack of beer. I'm going to invite people to have a beer." And he said, "Better take the beer outside. It's not, alcoholic beverages are not allowed on premises." So
I don't think it was Ledyard, because I was the town chair then. I don't really.
well, maybe not. Okay, well, you know better. But I remember it was in Eastern Connecticut.
Yeah.
And but
That
the
sounds
story
like
is
Eastern
true.
Connecticut, yeah.
It's absolutely true, except a different town.
If it was New London, we would have let you drink the beer.
And also,
When I was in
Senator, we wanna
Australia,
recognize-
they lock up the school, and after the kids have all left, they will open up the refrigerator, special refrigerator, and they'll all have a beer there. I
Oh.
couldn't believe it. Yeah, so amazing. When I was doing a teacher exchange down there, I saw how they were doing that.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to a time when we'll all be together in person. You know, and we can hug and I would settle just for being together, you know, coming together for all those events, and so forth. Because I think it's left a gap in our lives.
Yep.
Well, it's been a real boost, Senator, to have you on this call with us and to kick off our joint Salem East Lyme DTC meetings. And we know how precious your time is. Unless there's something pressing that you think we should know, we will contact Arizona, Colorado, Maine, North Carolina, Montana, Georgia, and Texas was the list that I took notes on when you were speaking. So
that's it. I think
anybody knows
Carolina and Kentucky.
and Iowa. Yeah. Well, Kentucky would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah, not gonna happen.
He's not gonna change his mind.
Yeah.
Iowa, no, Iowa should be on there. She's
Iowa. Yeah.
trying to
Iowa?
fight for her skin.
Yeah.
Yep.
Between all of us, we probably know somebody in each of those states.
Well, I really want to thank you, Cate and Martha. Both of you are candidates. I know how hard you're working, how precious your time is. I'm down here in DC. I wish I were back in Connecticut. We're in the probably last 5-7 days of session before the election. But I'm so grateful to you for letting me participate in this event. And to all of you, let me just say, for your friendship over the years. Tony was mentioning my first race for Attorney General. I hesitate to tell you how long ago that was. But, I know many of you have given me such help and support. And a thanks to you, Martha, for not only being a great candidate, but also town chairman in New London. That is probably the most thankless but most important job in politics. And to all of you, and I know a number of you on this call, like Tony, have served as town chairs. My thanks to you, but to everyone. You know, I'm not on the ballot this time, but I feel like I am because we all have so much at stake. And you know, I won't be up until 2 years from now, but America really needs Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and we need a Democratic Senate, and we can repair our democracy. We can restore America to what we all know it should be and what we know it means to us as Americans. So I just want to thank you for all your hard work. You're the ones in the trenches making a difference. So keep up the great work, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you,
Thank
Senator.
you so much.
For your
Really
time.
appreciate
Thanks, everyone.
your wisdom.
Thank
Be well. Stay safe.
Yay.
Take care.
You ready to go?
Senator, thank you.
Thank you. See you soon.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Keep it up, Kate.
Oh,
I'll
we're
have a beer.
looking.
Take care.
All right, so I guess now that we're wrapping things up, we'll start our combined meeting between Salem and East Lyme's DTC. So we have some people coming in.